Hi guys, this is Shauna with New to the Country Life. I want to thank everybody for supporting my videos and leaving all the comments that you do and messaging me privately. Because I'm doing the videos, I'm getting so many questions that I decided it was finally time to sit down and do a different kind of video. So the questions I get asked most are like what kind of resin I'm using, what do I mix it in, where do I get my molds, just all kinds of random stuff. And so I'm just going to go through a bunch of stuff in this video, and hopefully it will answer a lot of the questions. So let's start with the basics, because resin is what you guys are doing, and that's what everybody asks, what type should I be using and stuff like that. And the answer is that there's lots of kinds of resins, and you're going to find that people have their favorites because they've learned the ins and outs of it, and they know how to work with it, the brand that they pick. So I'm going to show you what I use. I use a couple different kinds because they're for different purposes. And then we'll go through some other stuff with it. But to start with, what I use for my stuff is from KS Resin. And the kind I use is Liquid Art Epoxy. And I buy it in bulk because I use so much of it. I buy, it's a 2-gallon kit. Sometimes I buy 4-gallon kits. You want to buy what you're going to use up. You don't want it sitting around too long, because every time you take the cap off, moisture can enter the bottles. And once it starts doing that, it gets cloudy, it changes colors, and it may not cure correctly. So if you're just starting out and you're using like keychain molds, don't go buy, 4 gallons of it unless you plan on really pouring all that within a reasonable amount of time. And I'm going to say that's probably 4 to 6 months in my experience, but every resin's different. I'll also put links for all of this stuff in the description of the video so you can get to it easily. And some of the stuff has discount codes. KS Resin is one of those. The one that I like to use, I have tried the Liquid Art Epoxy with UV, and for me, in my workspace, I had trouble with that drying. The benefit to having that is it keeps the resin from turning yellow longer, because resin will do that. And if you're doing a project with, like, say, a white tumbler or a white keychain, you will notice the yellowing. I don't notice it at all if you're using glitter, micas, ink, alcohol ink, stuff like that. It's where white is concerned that you start seeing that yellow color come into it. So for the most part, everything I do doesn't involve a lot of white. So I just went back to using the regular one without the UV protection in it. And I've had great luck with this KS resin. So I didn't clean my bottle off last time, so I'm getting sticky. Another kind that we use for different applications is also KS resin, and this is the liquid stone, and this one is meant for deeper pours, thicker molds, things like that. So I have a couple molds, like this one is thicker, it's tall, and the other ones want you to pour no more than 1/4 inch at a time. This one, you can pour a little bit more. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's like 1/2 inch or something. But you can read it. One of the things that you should know is you can go to all of these different products websites, and they will tell you what the work temperature is, what the mixing ratio is, how high you can have humidity, and all of that kind of stuff. So be sure and check that out in detail before you pour, so that you know if you can't pour this more than 1/4 inch, you don't want to pour a mold that's 1 inch thick, because it will flash cure and it will ruin your mold and you'll never get your piece back. So just go online and read about each one and see what fits your application. And you'll see why I have different applications here, because I do different things. So another one I use is, this is Counterculture DIY, And I like using this one. This is their hard casting resin. This one's 2-to-1 mix ratio. So you mix 2 parts, part A to 1 part B. And the reason I like it is because you can do 1.5 to 2 inch pours. So when I'm doing something that's a lot thicker, I like to use this brand. And this is like the first bottle I bought. I wanted to try it out, so I bought these smaller ones, and now I buy these larger ones. So you get, because it's a 2-to-1 ratio, the bottles are different size. So this bottle's half as big as this one. And again, that's Counterculture DIY, and I'll put their link in the description as well. I don't have discount codes for that one. And each one dries differently. Like these are, they say they dry in 24 hours. I've been able to take these out of molds in about 12. This one specifically says like your temperature has to be between 75 and 80, and humidity must be under 60%. So like if you live in the South and have high humidity and you're in the house because you want it air conditioned but you keep it at 69, this is never going to set up. You're going to have trouble with it. So I use a heat lamp, and I'll show you that if I can get a hold of it here. The kind I use is like you use for livestock, like we had them for our chickens, but I don't use a light bulb because those are dangerous. So what I use is this heating element. It warms up, this radiates out, and it keeps my workspace in that 75 to 85 degree range so that things will cure properly. Okay, the next thing is I get asked things like, how do I prep my work surface? So I use just dollar store wax paper, tear it off, put it down, and put my molds on it. I do my mixing on it, and that keeps my work surface from getting crud on it. And it's cheap, so you can just throw it away. Wax paper. As far as what I stir with, I go back and forth, but for the most part, I use a chopstick, bamboo chopsticks, and I prefer this kind. I get them at my local Mongolian barbecue. When I go there to have that, I grab a couple extra. They last for a long time, but I prefer this kind because 2 sticks hook together and it has kind of like a paddle on this end. So that makes nice for stirring. And it doesn't have like a pointy end on this side, so it's not gonna hurt my molds or anything. But the nice thing about bamboo is it doesn't seem to absorb the epoxy and release bubbles like a popsicle stick will. This is much more porous than the chopstick. I do use these though, and I've not had trouble with them. I know other people have a lot of trouble with them and recommend things like silicone stir sticks. I've had this one a long time and I've kind of beat it up a little bit, but these make great stir sticks for, you know, scooping out and mixing up and stuff. So that's what I use. And these, I'll see if I can find you a link for them. I was given them for free a couple years ago, so I'm not exactly sure where to get them at. I'm going to show you this project in a second, but I just tipped a cup over on it and it's stuck. Okay. Other tools that I use, I use a syringe sometimes if I'm trying to fill details in a mold. I buy these at, you can get them on Amazon. I buy mine at a local farm store because they sell them, you know, for administering medication to animals and stuff. But with these, you have to clean them fast when you're done because that epoxy will sit in there and it'll ruin this rubber stopper if you don't. And it won't hold the epoxy in any longer, and it will clog your tube. So I'll show you how to clean those, or tell you how to clean them in a minute. But you can pour your mixed epoxy down in here, and then what I do is I hold it upside down like this, let the air out, and then turn it over and fill whatever I'm filling. And then I squirt the rest of it back in my cup and immediately put this in a cup full of alcohol. Alcohol cleans epoxy really well. One of the other tools I use a lot that you'll see in my videos, these are in the paper craft sections of stores. You can get them on Amazon. They have balls on the end, a small one and a little bit larger one. But I like using these because when you mix in the molds and stuff, you're touching your mold, and you don't want to put scratches in the mold, because anytime you do that, it not only transfers to your product, but it can damage the mold and make it where things stick to the silicone that shouldn't. So I like using these because you can, you know, mix your color and stuff, but that ball protects your mold. For paintbrushes, I either do, like I buy these at Walmart. They're very inexpensive, but they're good brushes. Or when I'm doing my mica, I use makeup brushes, and these are from the dollar store. So they come in round and these angled. I prefer the angled ones. I don't really use the round ones very much because they don't get in the corners, but they come as a pack. So I end up giving them to my daughter usually. But these are just from, you know, your local dollar store, and they work great for painting mica in. You can use a paintbrush if you want to paint epoxy into certain molds, like chest molds and stuff like that, but you're pretty much saying goodbye to your brush because there's no way to get that completely out. Even if you're cleaning alcohol and stuff, once you let it sit, it just hardens and ruins your brush. So that's why I use disposable, I call them disposable brushes from the dollar store, because they're inexpensive and easy to get. As far as what I mix in, I use a variety of things. So these are little pill cups that I get off Amazon, and I like them because if I'm going to mix a small amount, they go up to 30 milliliters, and most of my keychains take like 15 to 20. A couple of them take 30, but if I'm just pouring a single keychain, or I'm mixing a bunch of different colors to put in a project, I can put them in these little ones and have my small amount measurements on there. Once I go up from there, these are also from the dollar store or Walmart or wherever you want to get them. These are a 5-ounce cup, and I think these are I think they're an 8-ounce cup, a little bit bigger. But any of these kind of cups will work to mix it in. You just have to have a way to measure it. So because these are graduated, you know, from top to bottom, half is not halfway through. So what I do if I'm going to mix a lot in these and I don't have a measurement is I'll put 2 of them out, and I'll put part A in one and part B in another if it's a 1-to-1 mix, and I get them equal. And I use the little lines on here to, you know, I'll measure up like, okay, that's 4 lines and that's 4 lines. So that way I know it's equal, and then I mix them together to mix. With these ones, usually what I do with them is I reserve these for when I'm mixing a larger amount of color, and I don't measure in them because there's no good way to do that other than the half and half, like I did with the other cups. But I've gotten where I don't really use these too much because I got tired of spending money on that, because every penny counts when you're in business, right? So I started using these silicone cups, and I have them in 2 sizes. So this is a 100 milliliter one. So where these are 30, that 30 marks right here. So these are 100 milliliters. So I can mix 3 times as much in one of these. And then these guys are 250 milliliter ones. And most of the measurements that I work with are in the metric system, but the nice thing about this cup, it does have cups on there if you want to know that. But I almost always am measuring in milliliters milliliters, because that's what people in the groups and stuff are doing, and so it's easier to translate and copy and talk to them about that. I'll put links to where I got mine. They're actually from KS Resin. And I just, you know, each time I order, I just add a couple more so that I start building up my stock of them. So here's what happens. You pour your resin, and then I have a pad back here. I think you can kind of see the pink, and there's upside down ones on here. After you pour, you turn it upside down, and everything drains onto that bottom silicone pad. And I use a mold because it has edges, and that way nothing runs off. And then a couple days later I come back and everything's hard in there. And even if you forget to turn it upside down on there, it will dry hard like this down in here. There's a little puck in here, so I'm going to show you how to pop that out. The silicone's very flexible, so if you just start pushing it around, that puck will come right out, and your cup is almost clean. You can roll it around in your hands like this to get some of the bigger stuff loose, and then I tap it in the garbage can. And then I just remove anything like that, and that all goes in the garbage. Some people save it because you can actually, if it's colored and stuff, you can put it in other pieces and have it show up or whatever. And sometimes they're kind of cool shapes, but for me, I just get rid of them. And then if you take alcohol, I was telling you alcohol is a great cleaner for this stuff. So I buy shop towels, and I buy them online. You can also get them at Harbor Freight. They're $9, and it's this great big thing of shop towels. And I do the great big ones because I go through so many of them. And you get your alcohol. I have found that if you can find the 91% or even the 99%, this one you can get on Amazon. This one I got at Walmart. They work the best. There's 70% that doesn't work as well. So the one with the red label, 91% seems to work the best. And I said I got that at Walmart, but I actually got that one at Family Dollar because I saw they had them, so I grabbed a bunch. If you get your towel wet with the alcohol and go inside and rub it, you just kind of, go over it. It pulls all that other resin out of there, and tap it again. And it doesn't hurt if you have a little bit left in there, unless it's a weird color or glitter. You want to try to get that stuff out. But there you have a clean cup ready to go for your next pour. So I like them because they're fairly easy to clean. My only complaint is I need more big ones because I do a lot more big pours. But I have a ton of these smaller ones. So I've just been ordering a few here and there as I go. I use the alcohol to wipe my table off if it's sticky, and it is because, like I said, I didn't wipe that one bucket off and it got on everything. Let's see. What's next? I get asked about coloring. Can I use paint? Can I use alcohol ink? Can I use this and that? So I'm going to address the paint issue first. If you want to put paint in epoxy, it needs to not be a water-based or oil-based because that inhibits the epoxy from curing. You can do a tiny amount of acrylic paint. I've seen people do it and it works. I personally have not had luck with it. Every time I try it in my epoxies, my pieces don't dry right. So the things that I use to color mine are alcohol inks, and you can go crazy with colors. You can make your own. There's lots of videos online about how to make them. But these are the colors that I have, and I found these nifty carriers on Amazon. So they store in here. I use a couple different brands. Mostly I use, it says Ranger here in the corner, but it's Tim Holtz when you go to look it up, alcohol ink. And I kind of just have them, in here by color. So I have my blues, greens, and then shades of browns and blacks back here. And I just store them in there. And then when I need a different color, like I'm in the oranges here, I come in here and just find what I need. So with alcohol ink and epoxy, there's lots of ways to use it. If you're mixing it straight into your epoxy to create a color, and this is true for any colorant that you put in, you want to stay below 5%. Because it can also affect the curing if you put too much in it. So there's other techniques where you can do like alcohol ink swirls on a cup on a turner. There's all kinds of stuff you can find on the internet. But alcohol inks is one of my big go-tos for colorants because I have really good luck with it. They're transparent for the most part. There's a couple colors that aren't. Your metallics, like I have a silver metallic in here. Your white, and I specifically always use the Pinata white and black because they're nice and opaque, so that if I want to make something not transparent, I can use that. But I use a lot of it, so I buy them in the bigger bottles and refill my small bottles. Amazon, again, I'll put links to them. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Okay, the other thing I use to color is mica powders. And mica powders can range from being transparent, depending on how much you use, to being opaque, again, depending on how much you use. The brands that I have right now are from Arteza, and that's because when I very first got started, I had no money, and Arteza offered Sizzle, and so I bought my colors through them, and I had no idea that a little bit went a long way is so true for micas that I think it's been 3 years. I'm still using the mica I originally bought. I haven't had to buy any more. I started out with these 2 sets. So this one has 35 and they're a little bit bigger bottles. This one has 60 and it has more colors, but they're small bottles. So I was a little concerned about it. That's why I bought both ones. But if you look through here, you can see as much stuff as I do, these bottles are still really full. And these are colors I use all the time. A little bit really does go a long way with these guys. So I know that there's some controversy with mica powders about where they're harvested and how they're made. Some of them aren't good. I know that Arteza lets you know that they're done in an ethical way. I don't know anything about that process, so I don't want to get into that or anything. But check out your powders and make sure that they're good before you do anything else. Let's talk about molds for a second. So molds come in all different colors because the material that they make them out of are all different thicknesses, and some work better than others. I almost never like these clear molds. I have a lot of trouble with them. The resin, if it gets too hot, definitely sticks to these worse than, say, like a pink one. But sometimes that's all you can get. Like my chest molds, almost all are in this type of material. So there's just not a lot of choice. You just have to deal with it. And what I do to try to prevent problems is I pay attention that I'm not pouring it too deep so that it doesn't get too hot and weld itself to the mold. I also use this product from Cast and Craft, which is a mold release conditioner. It makes demolding easier, but it also, silicone will dry out. And especially this type of silicone that's real nice and soft and gives you the shiny finish. So what I do is I will spray it on, and it's a real light mist, and I just let it dry on there because that's got the right things. This contains the right things to moisturize this and to help keep things from sticking in it. So periodically I go through and do that. Almost every time I use these, I will use mold release on them just to try to help ensure that I don't have any issues with these type of molds. But I can tell you it happens, and I end up throwing molds away and just having to reorder. That's part of my pricing. It's included, you know, in the pricing that every few products I'm probably going to have to replace that mold. And when you're doing business, maybe I'll do another video on that, but when you're doing business, you have to make sure you get all the costs in there so that you're not shortchanging yourself, so that when something happens, like you run out of resin, you have money that you've made so that you can replace that resin. You are going to have disposable things like your popsicle sticks or, you know, whatever, alcohol inks. All that stuff is all disposable. So at some point you have to replace it. You need to make sure your pricing includes that so that when the time comes, you can do that. So that's that. I also keep alcohol in this little spritz bottle. After you pour a mold, this one's kind of an issue keep watching for a video with this. My daughter decided to do this on her own, and that was fine, but she didn't stir it long enough. And so we have, after several days, we have a very flexible mold. So we're going to try to save it, because right now it barely is coming out of the mold. And some places it won't even separate. Like right here, it won't separate. It's just too soft still. Over here, after several days, it's getting hard enough that I can get the mold away from it a little bit. But we're going to do a video on this. It's a cute video because she snuck in here to make it and didn't ask, and it's kind of funny. After you pour mold like that, though, to get rid of bubbles, you're going to need either a heat source, and these work fine. You just need to stay away from the edge of the mold, because what happens is, again, this will heat up the resin. That resin will then weld itself to the silicone, so you have to be super careful with that. A better way to do it, in my opinion, and what I've been doing a lot lately, is using alcohol. If you spritz the top of it with alcohol, and even you can even spritz the mold before you put stuff in, because it's going to evaporate, it helps pop bubbles. And you can keep coming back every 2-3 minutes for the first 10 minutes or so, and then check it 15 minutes, and if it has bubbles again, you spray it and the bubbles just pop. So dollar store or Amazon, just little spritz bottles, and transfer your alcohol into that for finishing things. If you're going to do a heat gun, be sure to get one that is safe. It's real easy to get burned on these, and it's real easy to start a fire with these, because this tip will get red hot, and if you lay it down and it's not on its stand and you put it too close to something, cause problems. But it's real easy to ruin your molds. Now, having given the tip about alcohol and this, and I also use fire, don't use them together. Alcohol is flammable, and you sometimes when it's on fire you can't actually see it. So if I sprayed this and then I put heat to it, it could ignite this, and it burns so low and quietly that could be on fire and not know it. And if you got something like the wax paper sitting next to it, you catch it on fire. So don't mix the two. If you choose to do alcohol, stick with alcohol. If you choose to do heat, that's fine. Just don't mix the two together. Gloves are something that you need. Nitrile gloves are what I recommend. We had a shortage here and I could not get them. I don't actually even know what these are. It doesn't actually tell you, other than it says latex free. I was using these and I had a bad problem with the resin seeping through and getting to my fingers, and I had an allergic reaction. My whole hands broke out. It was horrible. I only use these for other stuff now. I don't use them when using resin. Use nitrile gloves. You can get them on Amazon. They're about 3 times the price that they used to be, but you're going to want them. You don't want that on your hands. Trying to think if there's anything else that I get questions about that I'm watching here. I'll probably end up doing a second set of videos later and talk more about other questions. But at least this gets you started. Oh, I should mention that glitter obviously is something you can color resin with too. And in the description, I'll have a couple links for a couple places. Honestly, almost all of them get them through the same people. There's almost no American-made glitter, and people will get the same glitter and name them different names. Just price check. Find your favorite people to work with that ship quickly. Carry the variety that you want. I don't have... I recommend a couple people in my VIP group. One of them's local to me, and I really like them. The other one is a new friend that I just made, and she's just getting started, and that's hers, Bitty Bug. So there's a couple that I recommend, but for the most part, honestly, they all come from the same places. So you just want to find the place that has the colors you want, the service you want, and the price that you want. Gosh, if there's anything else you guys have questions about that I didn't cover in this video, let me know. I'm happy to do another video like this and answer questions. But for right now, I think we'll cut this one off. check the description. I'll put links in there for you. And if there's anything I didn't get a link for that you want, message me or comment on the video and I'll get that done for you. Thank you guys so much for your support and following my channel. I very much appreciate you guys.